Do you believe in mermaids? This is a mermaid's bladder. Well, that's the Greek translation for this genus of seaweed. Most people call it bullwhip kelp, and we find it along the Pacific Northwest coast. This hollow stem can be up to 100 feet long, and this end here is attached to an anchor rock down at the bottom to hold it down, while this bulbous part is filled mostly with carbon monoxide so that it raises up towards the surface of the water where the ribbon-like blades can receive enough sunlight. Now, if you were a modern-day 10-year-old walking along the beach and you found a long piece of this, you might pick it up and pretend it's a jump rope or maybe a whip. But let's imagine for a moment that you're a Native American 200 years ago. In that case, you might take a long piece of this and dry the stem and use it as a fishing line. Or maybe you'd cut off the stem and use this bulbous part as a storage vessel for oils or deer fat. Or your mind might go to that problem you've been having with your fishing hooks. They've been floating rather than sinking. You need to use a heavier wood, maybe that knotted section of the branch where it's denser, but how would you get that to curve into the shape of a hook? Well, you could cut off this stem and insert that straight piece of wood inside and add a little bit of water. And then you'd plug up the top with a wad of moss. And then you would bury this package in the hot, smoldering ashes of a fire overnight. And in the morning, when you remove that piece of wood, after having steamed all night, it would now be pliable enough to form into a hook. Now that's a lot more involved than just picking up a piece of seaweed and pretending it's a jump rope. But the ingenuity that went into figuring out that process, that's the kind of thinking we need today's youth to be doing. So how do we get our kids hooked on learning? As a fifth grade teacher, I don't just see the problems with our education system. I experience them with my students. And sometimes I think the public thinks I am the problem. Teachers are burnout. Teachers aren't qualified. Teachers, they're just in it for summer vacation. We could say, well, our hands are tied in the face of dysfunctional educational policies. We could blame the parents for not feeding them breakfast and letting them stay up too late. Or we could say, it's just a lazy generation of kids. Or we could do more of what we know inspires youth. Despite our challenges, teachers actually have an advantage because we're right there in the classroom with the kids every day. We don't have to wait for top-down institutional change or hold back because it's not in the standards or the textbook. It's an inside job, right? This year's TED Prize winner, Sugata Mitra, says that our current education system is obsolete. This generation needs an entirely new approach to learning. So what do students need? During my summer vacation, I get to create a lot of my own curriculum, and schools have fostered creativity for me, not killed it. And whether it's because my board and administrator are too busy to notice, or because they're wise enough to let my colleagues and I teach to our strengths, I'm able to approach a lot of my lessons from unique angles, from outside the box, from outside the classroom. That's what my students need. Teaching is a dirty job. It's snotty hands and chewed up pencils. It's a hot mess of independent projects and scribbled rough drafts. And some days, it requires rubber boots. I teach at a school where we can walk to the ocean, to a stream, and to the forest. I've timed it. I need 10 minutes to get to the salty tide pools, 12 minutes to get to that moss-covered bridge over the stream, and 15 minutes to get to the dark woods. I'm lucky, I know. Something magical happens when our shoes hit that dirt trail and that first huckleberry branch grazes our shoulders. It's like entering Terabithia. We speed up, become lighter, bouncing off the ground, dodging roots, springing downhill. Part of the euphoria is due to the fact that the students can't believe their teacher is actually running, but also letting them scale down hillsides like mountain goats. Just 10 minutes from our classroom and we're in a different world. The class dynamic changes. And that kid who sits alone in the cafeteria becomes the most sought-after survivalist, to identify the sorrel or to find the best sap, to attach a maple leaf mast to a twig raft. And these vessels of bark and foliage inspire a boat race down the rapids. This boat building has become a lesson in our next writer's workshop, an example in how we plan and build, revise and rebuild with the help of our peers. Immediately, some students veer off on their own, intent on creating crowns of fern and ivy, while most start gathering broken branches and scouting out ideal locations for their forts. We start talking about hunters and gatherers from our social studies lesson and wonder, how difficult would it be to start a fire here? We decide to ask an expert to class to show us his flint and tinder box. A new boy is asked for help as another tries to position his sticks into the form of a teepee. Later, that student writes in his journal, "Today was an awesome first day at my new school. I'm one of the clan." On the way back to class, some girls find part of an old beehive, and they start discussing their plan to capture bees and send them through black hoses attached to another hive. They tell me they're working on a solution to colony collapse disorder. Someone slips and hurts their knee on the way up the hill, but immediately the class hollers to stop, and they offer hands of support and encouragement. In just 60 minutes, I've seen teamwork, invention, risk-taking, and kindness. That's what my students need. But at the end of the day, did I teach these 10-year-olds what the state says I was supposed to teach them? Maybe not. Not yet. But I can hear in their yelps and breathless explanations of ideas that they're excited, ignited. Back in the classroom, we make connections. How do our actions impact these places we love? And now I've got their attention because you can bet, once they realize chemical fertilizers might contaminate that stream they like to wade in, they ask, why doesn't everyone just use manure and other plants to prepare their soil? They ask about that part in the Michael Pollan book we read, that part about how the chickens follow the cows and eat the bugs out of the cow poop. Why doesn't everyone do that? They ask. We want to experience more firsthand, so we go to farms and we see the mobile chicken coops, and we notice that the CSA farmer has nitrogen-fixing plants, smother crops, and plenty of bee-friendly flowers, and they'll like that because fifth graders, they're sad when they learn bees can't always find food. The burning questions that lead kids and adults to seek understanding for themselves are born from authentic experiences. That's what my students need. Go outside, get in the field, and watch those mental sparks fly as they try to create a sonic boom with the crack of a seaweed whip, or marvel at why a flat rock skips. Break the rules, take your shoes off, and feel the current wrapping around your legs. Discover your community. Have you visited the local farm that sells raw goat milk? Or taken a harbor cruise on a commercial fishing boat? or scoured the local scrap metal yard for robot parts. Go ahead, kick those coals and smoldering ashes and uncover those hidden curiosities that just need a little air and a whisper of ideas. Fan the flames of curiosity, adventure, and awe. That's what my students need. 50 years ago, ecologist Rachel Carson wrote perhaps her most famous book, The Silent Spring. But it's her words from another book that have stayed with me since I was a child. If I had influence over the good fairy who presides over the christening of all children, I should ask that her gift to each child be a sense of wonder, so indestructible that it should last throughout life. And that's what every student needs. Thank you.